and it was all the sandy area. And the last time that the Tlinkits were coming from Alaska, this is pre-Orthodoxy, to raid the tribes of the inland sea, the Salish Sea, which is what the Puget Sound is part of, as they were coming down to raid and to steal and to enslave, the Puyallup tribe was ready for them, and they came up over this isthmus with boulders and threw them into their canoes and sank them, and everything was reversed, and the Tlingit never came back to the Puget Sound to raid again. So when we think about what we do to humans, to fellow humans, and then what we see with what is happening in the Middle East to Christians, and now ISIS bringing the war to Europe, to France, to Italy, or to France, to England, to Belgium, and the cruelty of these bombings, and who care little about who is getting offed. You know, there was one scene that was shown recently, this last bombing, where there's a little girl who's standing in this rubble crying, and you can see the body of her mother next to her. And these are the kinds of things that we do to one another. And so what do we Christians do, and how do we respond to that? Well, one of the things we can do is we can lobby our government to do something about the Holocaust that is happening against all Christians throughout the Middle East. And we can also lobby to bring them here, rather than just opening our borders to anybody who could be ISIS. I'm really concerned about that. But how do we change all of these things? Well, change begins here. I have to change. I have to reach out with love in my heart for everyone that I come in contact with. I was, forgive me if I've already said this last night, I don't remember, but I did say this last night, but I'll say it again for those who weren't here last night. How many people were not here last night? All right, I'll say it. I was the speaker for the Holocaust Memorial last year for the Armenian Holocaust. And so I parked my car about a block and a half away from the site, from this main public square called Pacific Center. And on my way there, I saw 3 young black men coming towards me. And they were wearing hoodies. And of course, as our culture has, in the last number of years, has sort of designed it that old white men are supposed to be afraid of young black men in hoodies. And I saw them and I smiled brightly and I said, "Isn't this a beautiful day?" And one of the young men said, he tried to ask me politely what I am. What am I? Who are you? What are you? And he was sort of stumbling over his words, trying to find the best, most polite way to ask. And I finally said, "Are you asking if I'm a Seahawks fan?" "Yes." And it busted them up. And I ended up getting a hug from all 3 of them. That just set my day off. And I purposely went to this Holocaust memorial, not because I'm Armenian, but because they're my brothers and sisters. So I was the only non-Armenian there. When they had a memorial in downtown Seattle one night, a candlelight memorial, on the actual date, I was there. I took my monks with me because I belonged there. When a Sikh temple in this country was attacked and people were shot and killed because they were mistaken as Muslims, and all the Sikh temples in the Seattle area had memorials, and I went to one of the Sikh temples with one of my monks for the memorial. And that's one of the things where they had to accommodate this old Russian Orthodox monk, because they had to bring me a chair because I couldn't sit cross-legged on the floor like they were. I was so humiliated. I knew that if I had sat cross-legged, that when it was time to leave, we would have had to call the medics. But when we look into the face of another person, we should see Christ. Even if the person is an atheist or a Muslim, we should see Christ in them. And part of being the incarnation is making the incarnation present where we are. Now, as humans, and maybe you could give me like a half hour, like put your finger up when there's a half hour left, and then I can. I'm going to just run through the unique characteristics of our humanity. We are spiritual beings. We are personal beings. We are moral beings. We are rational beings. We are emotional beings. We are creative beings. And these are the attributes of God. We've been created in God's image and likeness. And so what it means to be an Orthodox Christian isn't just about attending services, giving alms to the poor, tithing to the church, singing in the choir, serving in the altar. These are all aids to the end on the journey. They're the substance of what brings about healing and transformation. And when we think of healing, it's holistic in nature. It involves our whole being, which is why we should be thankful that our church uses all the senses to expose us to the graces of God, the grace of God. You know, we have the sense of smell that is activated when we smell the incense, the sense of sight. Whenever I have visitors who are non-Orthodox to the monastery, especially young college students, I always try as best I can to go out and greet them, and I tell them to please keep your eyes open during the service. There's so many times I've forgotten to do that, and I'll look back to bless the people, and I'll see a group of college students from Seattle Pacific University, which is Free Methodist, and they're all standing there like this. And they've seen nothing. All the liturgical movement, all the beauty, all the sensing, all the icons, the beautiful vestments, everything is cut off because they've got their eyes closed. Sometimes when I finally get out there to give the homily, the very first thing I will say is, because we Orthodox are incarnational in our theology, we always stand in our services with our eyes wide open. We don't want to miss anything. And think about what this church would be like without the frescoes, without the iconostasis, without the altar, without the cross, without the images of Christ and the Holy Virgin. What would it be? Well, it would be Baptist. I once had a friend of mine, an evangelical free church minister, attend a Vesper service at the monastery. And I'm wondering, what is he thinking? And at the end of the day, the next morning, Pastor Ivaska called me and he says, I just want you to know how much I loved the service. And he said, it probably is surprising for you to hear from an evangelical minister whose church is the ultimate iconoclastic church. We have no images at all. They barely had a little cross on the pulpit, which was centerfold. And they have absolutely no liturgical tradition whatsoever. They have an opening prayer that he gives extemporaneously. They have hymns. They have a long sermon. They have a few more hymns, and that's it. And he said, but I guess I had better love it, because heaven will be liturgical. I could hardly believe I was hearing this from an evangelical free minister. Heaven will be liturgical. When I was a young man, about just fresh out of college, and I decided that I wanted to be buff. Under all this old fat, I'm a buff person. And so I joined Prinzi's Gym in Portland, Oregon, which was a traditional Italian family-owned gym. And at the time it was men only, and everybody was really into bodybuilding. And I thought this will be a better choice for me than the Y, because there'll be people that can teach me how to weightlift properly. So I go in there, and I'm this skinny guy, about 22, and I'm looking at all these free weights, and I reach down there to pick up a free weight, and I can't pick it up. And I'm kind of looking around and, well, gee, what could I pick up? Maybe I could pick up that one, but that's going to be embarrassing, because look at what these guys are lifting. And this guy came up to me. He was probably in his 60s, and big build, Olympic builder. And he came up to me and he said, "Kid, would you like me to show you how to lift?" And I said in a kind of a weak voice, "Yes." So he taught me how to lift weights. And he taught me, you work the upper body one day, the lower body the next day. And I told him I was an avid runner, and he said, the days that you do your longest run will be the day you work your upper body. And then when you do the lower body will be the day you'll do a short run. He says, that's a good plan. So I stuck to it for years. And there was another fellow about the same age as me that had joined the gym the same day. And he walks in, and he goes up, and he kind of started the same thing, but he finally moved to one he could lift. And he was just kind of doing his thing. And another guy went up to him and he says, Can I help you out? Can I teach you how to do reps and what you should, how you should lift and what you should do at the beginning? And I don't need any help. So he didn't take any instruction. And about 2 months later, these two guys that had both offered their help, one to me and one to the other fellow, came up to me and they said, my name was David at the time, and they said, "David, have you taken a look at that guy lately? Have you noticed anything strange about him?" the guy that wouldn't take any instruction. And I said, well, yeah, there is something going on there. He's developing here, but his legs aren't developing and his back isn't developing. And they said, why do you suppose that's the case? And I said, because he's his own instructor. And one of the guys says, bingo. He's his own instructor. And as his own instructor, he's deciding what to do by looking in a mirror at himself. So his emphasis is only one place. And so he had turned into a skinny monkey. He was kind of leaning like a skinny ape. Whereas I was well defined by then. I was just beginning, but I was well defined. And it was because I had allowed someone to instruct me. And it is similar to our life in the church when we have a spiritual father or a spiritual mother to guide us. And it's one of the reasons why it can be lethal for the spiritual life to be moving around a lot. Oh, I don't like my priest. I'm leaving. I'm going to go to another parish. Or I don't really like that parish because they're Greek. I'm going to go to an OCA parish somewhere else. And you're moving around a lot. What that does is it deprives you of the spiritual direction of someone who knows you. It's sort of like you can't pretend that you're a rock star around your old friends, can you? They know you. Oh, yeah, right. And the value of having old friends is that because they do know you so well, they can call you on it when you're being a goofball or being a jerk. And your priest can call you out when you're not being honest in confession because he knows you. So he may not be the perfect priest, who is, but he's perfect for you because he knows you. And he ultimately has your best interests at stake because he wants to bring about your transformation, which is his job as a therapist in the hospital of the soul, which is what the church is. And so when we look at our lives in the church, and we see how working together in community is the best way to bring about the change that we want. To become holy means to be made whole. You know, lots of times we sit and we look at the saints on the walls of our churches, and they're just like almost like we've made them into gods, and they're there and they're beyond us, and we pray to them for help, and that we ask for their intercession in our life's journey. But that's as far as we go. We don't see ourselves up there. But if we be true to our faith, we have to see the potential that we will be up there. And if we are seeing ourselves as potentially on a wall of a church and people praying for us or praying to us, it simply is a way that we are recognizing that to be a saint, to be holy like a saint, is simply to be having been made whole.